A common question that I get is, how do you make executive communications effortless? And I get it. It's actually quite rare to see executive communications and effortless in the same sentence. It actually feels like an oxymoron because to most people it's difficult. But whenever I hear people tell me, well, it's so hard, it's so difficult, why I always ask them, well, hard, difficult compared to what? Because executive communications is not something that you're born with. I wasn't born communicating this way. I wasn't born this way where I can just look at a camera and take one shot and deliver the whole video. I wasn't born this way. When I first started in my communication journey, I was shy, I was introverted, and I've never talked to someone in public before. I had a lot of thoughts in my mind, and I had a lot of information and a lot of knowledge and education, but I didn't know how to get it out there. And I always hesitated because when I first learned English, technically, it was my second language. Cantonese was my first language, and I didn't start studying English until all of the people in my class were already reading books, and I had trouble with vocabulary, I had trouble with pronunciation, I had trouble understanding subtext. Definitely, I had trouble understanding subtext. So then when I first did my public communication, I was, for the first time, in front of people. Even though it wasn't on video like this or on a big stage, I was in front of people. And you can see that my posture was somebody who was very much introverted. I got my arms crossed, I was hesitating, and I was hoping in my mind that please don't talk to me, I don't want anyone talking to me, don't ask me a question, because I was so afraid to say the wrong thing, and I was so afraid to reveal how little that I knew, or how little that I knew how to communicate. Right? And then fast forward, but I persisted. And eventually what happened was I made it to my first stage. But every time I was on a stage, and it wasn't a very large audience, I needed to stand behind a podium. And I was stuck behind a podium because I had my notes in front of me. And I had scripted everything, right from, hello, my name is Grace, all the way to, thank you for being here. I had everything word for word, a script right in front of me, because I didn't have the confidence to be able to deliver knowledge, transformation, or information without referring to my notes. And so it was a clutch. I couldn't let go of my notes. So you see, communications didn't begin this way for me. I had to work hard at it. So what I want to share with you is a step-by-step process, and there are 5 steps in this process I'm going to share with you today on how I made it seem effortless. So 5 steps. The first step that I did was I didn't let the distractions succeed. And let's face it, there's many distractions. There aren't just distractions around you in your environment, there's distractions in your own mind, in your thoughts, in your ruminations, in your memories. There are distractions there. And I was committed not to let the distractions win. So the way that I did that was I made a decision. I made a decision that I was going to be the best in class. I made a decision that I was going to be a communicator and I was going to sound a certain way. I made a decision that I was not going to need a script and that I could be the best impromptu communicator. I made a decision, and then I was willing to pay the price. You see, most people don't decide their course moving forward because they're unwilling to pay the price it takes to succeed. And there is a price to pay for success. The price you pay is not just a financial price. It is a price on your intellect. It is a price on your finances. It is a price on your time. It is a price on opportunity costs. It is a price that you're willing to pay with your efforts, your focus, your intention, and so on. There is many different ways that it is going to require your commitment and your conviction on what you had decided. But when you decide, and there's nothing to it. I decide. And that decision is a simple decision. It is the same decision you make every morning when you decide what to wear. It's the same decision every night when you decide what you're going to feed your family. A decision is a decision is a decision. And I made a decision, I'm going to be best in class. And I did not let the distractions succeed. I did not let the distractions do what they're supposed to do, which was distract me from my chief aim. So that's the first step. The second step that I did was to turn internal communications into external communications. If you think about it, you're creating content all the time. The biggest reason why people feel that executive communications is difficult is because they feel like they don't have good content. They feel like they can't create and convey great content. Content that is influential, content that is transformational, content that is unique, and so on. But if you really, really think about it, inside of yourself, in your mind, you've been alive long enough and you have had enough life and professional experience to show you that you are creating content internally all the time. The trick now is to turn that internal communication into external communication. That is the key, because nobody knows how smart you are. Nobody knows what you know. Nobody knows how you can solve problems until you are able to convey what is already in your mind outwards. So that is what I did. I figured out the process of how to turn it from internal to external communications. The third step that I did was to align my beliefs with reality. Growing up, I really was that square peg in a round hole. As I mentioned earlier, I grew up in an English-speaking community, and I was the only member of my class growing up that had black hair, that spoke a second language outside of English, that grew up in a family that did not speak English. I was the only person in the whole school like that. Everybody else was Caucasian. Everybody else spoke predominantly English. It was their only language. It was their mother tongue. And as a result of that, I really was a square peg in a round hole. My cultural background was different. My cultural background being Asian, a lot of my relatives, including my parents, they taught me that you got to be good in school, you got to listen to your elders, and you can't speak up unless you are spoken to. You can't speak back to your elders, and you have to be a good girl. You have to obey, because obedience is the most important thing. And I grew up with that belief. And throughout my elementary school and throughout high school as well, and then eventually my teachers started telling me that if you want to be a great communicator, you need to be well studied. You need to read the books. You need to go to get your straight A's. You need to go advance into college. And I thought, as a result of that belief, I thought that that's all I needed to do was read more books, read the newspaper, start to be able to go in advanced education. And I did all the way through to a PhD, only to realize that it still didn't quite help me in my communicating, in my impromptu speaking, in my ability to create an argument and be persuasive and show gravitas. All that education didn't teach me that. What next? So I had all of these beliefs that did not align with your reality. And if you have beliefs about yourself, if you have beliefs about your condition, if you have beliefs about your situation, if you have beliefs about your circumstance that do not align with your reality, you cannot have success. Why? Because there needs to be a congruence. It's possible that you have had an erroneous belief about you and your situation that was told to you by someone you trusted, or a body, an entity that you trusted. And as long as you continue to believing that erroneous conclusion as the truth, it will be very difficult to succeed, because there is a gap between your beliefs and your reality. So this is where it's important to align your beliefs with your reality, because what you believe is what you will be imprinted upon in your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind is what creates your outcomes. So that is the third step. Align your beliefs with reality. The fourth step that I took to making executive communications effortless was that I submitted to a coach who held my feet to the fire. And this is really, really important, because as convicted as I was, as important as I said this was to me to develop this communication skill, sometimes you lack motivation. Sometimes you kind of want to retreat back when the going gets tough. Sometimes when challenges come your way, you feel like giving up and you're on the edge of giving up. But when I submitted to a coach who held my feet to the fire, I had accountability. I also had the right strategy. I also had someone guiding me down the right path. I also had someone challenging my beliefs to help me align them with reality. I also had someone to reflect back to me what that reality was, so I wouldn't keep continuing those erroneous beliefs. So then submitting yourself and trusting and submitting to a coach is one of the most important things, because we can't do it alone. I didn't have years to figure this all out myself. Maybe I did chronologically, but in myself, I had a sense of urgency that I wanted to achieve something by a certain time. And so I didn't have all these decades to figure it out myself. I wanted to fast track my way to the outcomes I desired. And it was important enough to me to submit to a coach. So if you're listening to this and you realize that you have been procrastinating, maybe there are challenges where you felt on the verge to give up. Maybe you did give up, but it's still on the back of your mind. You've always wanted to go back there and achieve that goal and to develop that skill. Then I submit and I invite you to work with me. Below this video, there is a link, the very first link that you can click on to book a call with one of my trusted expert advisors. And on this call, we're going to talk about where you're at right now, where your goals are, and what the exact strategy is to get there. And if we are the right match to each other, then we begin working with each other. And every single week, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. I'm going to challenge your beliefs. I'm going to hold you to your convictions, but most importantly, I'm going to take a stand for your life. Take a stand for the goals that you tell me that you want to achieve. And to be there, not just as your cheerleader, but as your mentor, your coach, and your guide. And with that, the trifecta of a coach, a mentor, and a guide, that you can be able to achieve your goals faster in a shorter period of time, but also to enjoy the journey while you get there. So why is coaching so important? Submitting to a coach so important? Well, throughout my journey when I was developing this skill, I had a lot of friends who came to my rescue every time I failed. Every time I fell, they came to my rescue, and the first thing they tried to do was soothe my feelings, to help me feel better, to confirm what I was believing was true, so that I wouldn't have to continue to feel bad, so that I wouldn't have to continue to feel upset. Now, that was very faithful. My friends were very faithful, but as you can see, that faithfulness was very deceiving, because I didn't realize that I wasn't being challenged to achieve my fullest potential. I didn't realize that I wasn't given the help that I really needed. My friends were faithful in giving me what they believed I wanted, but they weren't giving me what I really needed to become my bigger self. So sometimes the faithfulness of friends can be deceiving because it feels like help, it feels like support, but what we really need, if the goals really are important to us, what we really need is someone to hold our feet to the fire. And friends aren't always the best at doing that because they're faithful. They don't want to see you upset. They don't want to see you fail. They don't want to continue to see you feeling this way. So they try to soothe, they try to comfort, they try to move you and pull you out of it. Friends oftentimes don't take that place of a coach because in their side, it's actually quite difficult. And I realized that early on, that I have faithful friends and I'm grateful for the role they play in my life. But I made a decision, like I mentioned earlier, I made a decision that I'm ready for more. I'm ready to advance. I'm ready to achieve because this is truly meaningful to me and I'm authentic about that decision. So that was where I submitted to a coach. And that's the importance of coaching in life. Now the last step. The last thing I wanted to share with you, number 5, on what the steps that I took to make executive communications very easy. The 5th one is to communicate on all 4 levels of learning. Yes, when it comes to learning, there's 4 levels on which we can learn, and by consequence, these are also the same 4 levels in which you can teach, which you can convey your message, in which you can present. And the 4 levels are as such. We have tactics, which are the lowest level of learning. We have strategy, which is the next highest from there. Then we have principles, and then we have the essence. Most communicators spend most of their time talking and teaching about tactics and strategies. And as a result of that, they leave their audience lost in a lot of details. And this is true if you're communicating with senior executives, senior leaders, C-suite level executives as well. It's very easy for them to get lost in the details if what you are sharing with them are tactics and strategies. But when you are able to communicate and you have the fluidity to communicate and embrace all 4 levels of learning, including principles and the essence, you're able to be a very versatile communicator. You're able to adjust to your audience, to adapt to situational demands, and you're able to embrace your versatility in the leadership context. So this is one of the things that I really honed, was a skill level on communicating and learning and teaching at all 4 levels of value. So this was just a personal share, 5 steps that I took to be able to level up my communications, to be a thought leader, not just on social media, but in front of my exclusive community as well. And if you want to take this to the next level, I created another content piece on how to have executive communications, conduct them the easy way. That video is coming right up next. I'll see you there.